everybody. Welcome to Inside and Outside LegCo. I'm Emily Lau, and today I'm very pleased to have my friend, Professor Keith Richburg of the Hong Kong University
Journalism and Media Studies Center.
Journalism and Media Studies Center, and of course, President of the Foreign Correspondents Club, to come and talk about the state of press freedom and freedom of expression. Thank you very much, Keith.
Thank you. It's always good to be back. See you again.
Yes. Well, it was quite some time ago that you appeared last time,
Sorry.
and a lot have changed. And when I showed the the thing about our program to someone, and the guy said, "Well, there is only one word, one answer, none." Well, tell us, what do you think of the state of press freedom and freedom of expression in Hong Kong now?
Yeah, obviously, press freedom has deteriorated here. I mean, look at all of the international indices, people looking at it objectively, Reporters Without Borders. Hong Kong's dropped from 68th place down to 148th.
Is that right?
Down to 148th. I mean, and
I thought China is 148.
China's down to 175 out of 180 countries and cities and territories that are measured. China's at 175. North Korea is at 180.
So we're racing to the bottom.
It's a race, but I mean at 148. But the drop is what's dramatic, and nobody can remember a time that a place has dropped 68 points.
The highest, I think we were 20-something, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, years ago, that's right. And so it's a precipitous drop. Now, obviously, that's only one, but if you look at all the measurements, Reporters Without Borders, International Federation of Journalists, Hong Kong Journalists Association, all of them that do surveys or just look objectively at it will say that, press freedom has definitely eroded from where it was. Now, is it as bad as press freedom maybe across the border in the mainland? No.
Actually, it's not border. Can I correct you?
Oh, not border.
Boundary.
Boundary. Sorry, boundary.
If you want to be politically correct.
Politically correct, yes.
Is it? Well, you said mainland China is what? 140 something?
I think it's about 175 for mainland China. I don't have it in front of me. Yeah, I'd have to have my phone to get the exact number. But I mean, it's the situation there. In mainland China, obviously, for press freedom has always been that way, at least for the last several decades. The difference here is people are shocked at the drop. They're comparing it to what it used to be.
Like falling off a cliff.
It's like falling off a cliff. If you've already been at the rock bottom of the cliff, it doesn't feel so bad. But when you've been at the top of the cliff and suddenly you find yourself going down, it doesn't help to say, well, we're not as bad as they are, So yeah, I mean, if you compare it to what Hong Kong was, look, I knew you back in the 1980s. I think it was. I'm sorry to date ourselves here. You were a journalist, and in LegCo, we used to chat when I was coming in and out from living in the Philippines, and I lived in the Philippines, which had a free press. I'd come to Hong Kong and go, wow, that's a vibrant, lively, look at all these, media outlets that are just thriving and debating, and look at all this debate that goes on now. You compare it to those days, compare it to the 80s, compare it to the 90s, obviously the space has shrunk and shriveled. You don't get that kind of lively debate going on. You don't get that kind of investigative, in-depth reporting going on, whether it's about Hong Kong or about mainland China. Now, there are still a lot of outlets here, Chinese language media outlets, plus English language. You still have SCMP, Hong Kong Free Press. But what I'm missing a little bit is that kind of vibrancy in the press now. It's all become a bit kind of tamed and cowed since the crushing of some of the outlets like Apple Daily and Stand News and Citizen News, which voluntarily closed up. So you don't get much kind of debate. You don't get much investigative, really in-depth reporting anymore.
Well, you don't even get any proper reporting because many people are afraid to criticize.
They're afraid to criticize.
People in power.
They're afraid to criticize, and again, I mean, it's intimidation. A lot of people have also left the business. That's the other problem.
Or left the city.
Well, a lot of people have left the city. A lot of people have left the journalism business. But look, there's a lot of in-depth reporting that could be done, and I'd like to see it done, but I'd like to see it a bit more aggressive. The other thing is now also in the business of journalism, I think it's considered maybe not profitable to have journalists working for weeks and weeks or months and months on really in-depth investigative type stories. It's more profitable for the company to have people sit in their desks and make phone calls and churn out 2 or 3 stories a day as opposed to turning out investigative journalists who can actually uncover some things. Look, somebody needs to be asking the questions. Hong Kong, for almost 3 years, had the toughest COVID restrictions in the world. We also ended up having one of the worst death rates per capita. The hospital system was completely unprepared for the disaster that hit Hong Kong, in early 2022. That needs to be investigated. People need to go back. What went wrong?
Did you tell your students? Did you tell them that this is what you should
do? That's what I mean. That's I all the time.
And they're too afraid, huh?
They're not afraid, but I mean, not all of them get to. They're students still, so they don't always have the skills. But when they go out and work in their publications, if they're working here in Hong Kong, again, you get this problem where I don't know if publications are willing to invest the time it would take to do that, or if they find that's too sensitive. Now, again, that's an area that I think should be investigated. The Hong Kong government's not investigating it. They said they're not going to go back and look at what happened in that disaster. But that's exactly the sort of thing what we need a free press for, to hold government accountable. Holding government accountable is what the independent media does.
But there's not much independent media anymore, isn't it?
Well, people are kind of cowed. People are afraid. I hear, I've seen cases here, you all know what I'm talking about, where journalists will ask tough questions at a press conference, and then their outlet will apologize later. They'll get criticized in some of the media saying, how dare you ask that question? How dare you be rude in the press conference asking that question? And then later you see media outlets apologizing for reporters asking tough questions. So how do you teach them
at the university?
Oh, I teach them to ask the tough questions and don't take no for an answer.
But you know that they will not be allowed to do it by their media bosses.
Well, again, I mean, at some point, journalists have to decide whether they can keep working for a media boss who's not going to let them go after tough stories. And again, I'm not talking sensitive political stories. I'm just talking about everyday stories. And I use COVID as an example because that's something that needs to be uncovered, investigated, unraveled. All of these quarantine centers that were built around Hong Kong. How much does this cost?
I know.
How much money was spent on PCR tests and
on all these empty shelves which are sitting there doing nothing.
Empty shelves. How much was spent on all this? How much was spent on this? This disaster of COVID, which didn't work.
Yeah.
Didn't work. Hong Kong had one of the highest death rates in the world per capita. So something went wrong. And maybe they weren't listening to the experts. Maybe they were trying to blindly follow the zero COVID policy. That needs to be uncovered and looked at. But that's an area that's ripe for investigative reporting. But I don't think it's politically sensitive.
Of course it is.
It's not touching on national security in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, how do you see the way forward for this city? Do you think it is, as some people will say, oh, well, Hong Kong is finished. No more one country, two systems. The game is over. How do you see things?
Look, Hong Kong will always be here. It's not going anywhere, and the people here are pretty resilient. Hong Kong will come back in some way. I mean, the economy's coming back from the disaster of COVID. People are getting used to this new normal here, so Hong Kong will be here. As long as China is there, Hong Kong's always going to be a gateway to mainland China. I think Hong Kong's biggest problem now is they've got a brain drain of people leaving. The workforce, I believe, lost something like 94,000 people out of the workforce. You've got 300,000 fewer taxpayers, and the people who are leaving are people who you want to have here. They're in that generation between college and middle age. They're the people who are saying they don't see a future here. They don't want to be in a place where their kids might be subjected to propaganda in schools. Brainwashing, you might say, propaganda in schools, learning nonsense, instead of learning real history. They don't want people to learn critical thinking skills here. So that's why a lot of people are saying, look, I don't want to be here, or I don't want to be here and raise a family.
Someone sent me a post, something saying that 80% of the journalists who left Hong Kong are very happy. They're not regretting it at all.
I saw that.
And they asked me to ask you, what do you think?
Yeah, obviously, if they don't feel they could practice journalism here in a way that they feel proud of, they can't do it freely. They can't do what I'm talking about: hold government to account, ask the tough questions. If they have outlets that want them to write propaganda, they're going to be happier out of here. Yeah. But maybe the government wants those type of people to leave. Maybe they want people to leave if they're going to be questioning and asking, using critical thinking skills. But that's not Hong Kong.
I mean, as the chief executive, John Lee, said, it's in our DNA. What is in our DNA? It's freedom, personal safety.
Exactly.
Social justice, that's in our DNA.
Exactly. Well, exactly. That's what Hong Kong always was. You know,
Yeah.
it was never a democracy as we call it,
No,
because it was a British colony.
Yeah, that's right.
Sorry, you can't even call
You
it a British.
can't-
Can't even call it a British. That's what I mean by.
Now, don't say I get you kicked out of Hong Kong. You get yourself kicked out
I
of
get
Hong
my
Kong.
It was a British colony. Sorry. I
Yeah.
mean, you know, again, this nonsensical propaganda they're trying to promulgate now is what's driving people away.
Yeah.
You know, and they're trying to get people to use this lexicon, saying, "Oh no, it wasn't a British colony. It was occupied territory and all of that." I mean.
So are the young people still studying journalism?
Yes, we still have people who are interested in it. Interestingly, we have young people who are saying journalism is more important than ever. So the changes of the last few years have actually made a lot more young people interested in journalism. I think one of the problems that all the universities here might have in the future is there might be fewer young people.
That's true.
There might be fewer of them. So
Yeah.
as the young population goes down, because you know, the birth rates are going down, and as people in that age group who would have kids are emigrating overseas, that's going to be a long-term problem, I think, and not just for journalism programs, but I think for all programs in the university. Plus, you've got this emphasis on STEM programs, so social sciences and humanities might suffer from that as well. So you've got a
No,
lot
they
of
call it STEAM now.
STEAM.
Arts.
Oh, arts.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Put some arts in there as well.
So I hope these young journalists, graduates, will find something that they like, some organization that will employ them.
Well, a lot of them actually, they have a goal of working for international media, which they still has more space to operate freely here. So I think that's kind of what a lot of them come with, that goal of going international.
And many like to concentrate on court reporting, as you can see.
Yeah. Court reporting is big. Business reporting, obviously Hong Kong is a big business and financial center. Reporting on business and finance is also considered something a little bit safer. You know.
Well, not necessarily.
Not always, but I mean, again, they're great investigative stories to do, great depth stories to do about the business sector, the financial sector. Tech is quite big. If you got people who understand tech, who understand AI, who understand startup culture, I mean, that's a great area for coverage too. So again, you know, sports. Actually, we got a few students who actually are interested in sports reporting.
So
Fashion reporting. You know, there's all kinds of stuff you can do as a journalist here.
Yeah. What about the FCC? I know you're going to have an election coming up.
There is an election. It's a democratic election.
Are you running again?
I am not running again. No, I am.
You've had enough.
I will. Unlike President Trump, I will leave quietly and will not try to cling to power. No, I will hand over power peacefully to a successor.
Anyway, you're not going to be arrested.
No. Nobody's being arrested. We're there. We're fine.
Are you leaving Hong Kong U as well?
I will be leaving Hong Kong U another few months.
In a few months.
Another few more months, yeah.
Because your contract.
My contract is coming to an end then.
And are you leaving Hong Kong?
I hope not. It's one of my homes. I mean,
oh, really?
I might leave to do some traveling for a while.
I
because,
see.
You know,
but you will stay.
I'll try to. Yeah, this will be this is one of my homes. You know, but I've been stuck here for 3.5 years without traveling.
Yeah, like many other people.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to taking a few months off and travel. I haven't been back to the United States in 3.5 years.
I see. But have you found your next job yet, or?
Oh, not yet. Stay tuned. I'll let you know.
But you're staying. You're not leaving.
Oh, I don't want to leave Hong Kong. I mean, I love Hong Kong. I'll leave for a short while and come back, as I said, but just to do some traveling. But this is always going to be one of my homes.
So what about the foreign correspondents? How do they feel about Hong Kong?
You know, again, well, you know, a lot of the foreign correspondents, this is still headquarters for a lot of big agencies here. You know, New York Times, Bloomberg, Wall Street Journal, Reuters, AFP. They have big offices here, hundreds and hundreds of people employed here. A lot of them are doing regional jobs. You know, a lot of these, they're doing editing here as well. You know, it's a mixed bag. I mean, some say that the reporting has gotten a lot tougher. It's harder to find people to talk openly about things, especially about politics.
Yeah.
Some say sources who have been talking to them for many years are now saying, you know, it's not convenient to talk right now. Bu fang bian. You know, many of those who are here are actually here because they were trying to get into China. So this was kind of a listening post. So some have been waiting for a very long time to get into China.
Now they can get in.
Now they're getting in a little bit more. I'm told that's opened up a little bit. China's opened up a little bit more for foreign reporting. Part of that was COVID. Part of that was the geopolitical tensions with the United States and Western countries. That seems to be easing now. But still within Hong Kong, some of the foreign reporters are still doing great work here, but they say it's getting tougher and tougher to get people to openly talk about things.
Yeah, that is the thing, the state of the freedom of expression.
Right.
People, whether they are in business, in politics, in academia, or in other sectors, many of them are very scared.
Yeah, well, that's right. And the funny thing is, I lived in Beijing, I lived in Shanghai, and I was bureau chief for the Washington Post there, and I'd come over the border to Hong Kong, and really, once you came over the border, whether you flew in or came over by train, once you got to Hong Kong, you can almost you could breathe because, oh my goodness, it's people talk openly here. It's so free here. You can talk to anybody about anything. I would go to the LegCo and I could see people on all sides. I could see Jasper Zhang from one side. I could see yourself. And now, this place is almost more like the mainland, where people look over their shoulder. They don't want to talk openly. They say, oh, I don't want to talk about that. It's too sensitive, etc. So that kind of pall that was over reporting in the mainland has now come down here to.
So it's one country, one system, more or less, isn't it?
In that sense, and in the sense of the openness that used to be here, the vibrancy of free expression. Protest I would go every day. I'd go out and there'd be somebody protesting somewhere about something or other.
You look at the Lonely Planet. You used to say Hong Kong is a great place. Go and visit. The protests are so peaceful, so colorful, so musical, and so on.
City of protests, but now we look at it. It's been all.
You have to wear a tag.
Yeah, you got to wear a name tag, like you're in the Boston Marathon or something like that. Which
really
is kind of
terrible.
So that's really kind of. Again, but what we don't know is this going to continue, this kind of shrinkage of the space, or now that they've kind of swept up everything they want to sweep up, the dissident media, et cetera, are they going to loosen it up a little bit? And we don't know. It seems that things are going counter to their plans to have this kind of opening with Happy Hong Kong or Hello Hong Kong. And it's hard to say Hello Hong Kong on the one hand, but don't look over here on the other hand where we got these people on trial for things that they wrote, or don't pay attention to this trial of people going on. Pay attention to all the concerts and the clock and flap and all the fun things we're doing over here, but don't look at all of the kind of nastiness that's happening on the other side.
They're supposed to have this kickoff for the Happy Hong Kong campaign.
Yes.
Tomorrow or whatever. And now suddenly we have the arrival of this Beijing official, Mr. Xia Baolong.
Yes.
And he's going to be here for 6 days.
Yes.
So they say that Happy Hong Kong campaign will wait. The kickoff will take place after he's left.
Oh, we can't be happy while he's here?
I know. Isn't that
terrible?
Happy?
We can be happy.
I think he will not be very happy.
Maybe he won't be happy. I don't know. They can have happy.
How come?
Well, so I mean, they have these things that almost are going counter to each other.
I know.
The other thing is all of these trials that have been going on that we're all watching closely. The Stan News
and I go there almost every day.
Yeah, Stan News trial, the
47.
The 47. These are all coming to fruition at some point this year. So on the one hand, they say, tell good stories, write good stories about Hong Kong, but don't write about these trials going on, or don't pay attention to what's going on over here. So it's kind of almost like they're trying to do a sleight of hand, trying to get tourists back, but don't pay attention to the fact that we're kind of, doing all of these kind of weaponizing the judicial system against free expression.
Yeah, some of these people have been locked up for more than 2 years.
And
not given bail.
Justice delayed is justice denied.
It's very, very unfair, and it is so sad. Not just for them, but their families, their friends, children, everybody.
It's
locked up for over 2 years. They've not been found guilty of anything.
Not guilty of anything, without the presumption of bail, without the presumption of innocence, and being told that if we let you go on bail, you might continue to violate national security. But hold on a second.
Exactly.
It hasn't been proven that I have violated national security. Oh, and by the way, you can't hire the lawyer you want if it's an overseas lawyer in a national security case. That has to be approved now by the chief executive.
So all this is very, very... It's very, very disturbing, because this is in our DNA, isn't it? Independence of the judiciary, justice, presumption of innocence and all that. But now it's all, look at those people locked up for over 2 years.
That's a travesty. It's justice delayed is justice denied. But in the case of the hiring an overseas lawyer, this was the justice system worked.
Yeah.
The Court of Final Appeals said, yes, you're allowed to do this.
And then you go and ask Beijing.
But then you say, oh, we don't like the ruling of our own Court of Final Appeals. Let's get somebody else to overrule our own legal system here. So that, to me, that would undermine people's faith in their own judicial system if it can just be overridden by someone saying, well, let's ask Beijing to overrule that because we don't like the decision of the Court of Final Appeals.
Actually, that is not just on political issues, even on business, commercial thing, because they all have to go to court, and some are highly sensitive and involve a lot of money and big people. So if it's like that, oh, I don't like it, oh, let's go to Beijing and ask for a decision. This is not Hong Kong.
Yeah, well, that's what scares a lot of people, and I think that's what's contributing to this exodus of people who are leaving, and it's contributing to the negative publicity. They don't like bad headlines. They don't like what they consider negative stories or bad stories in international media, but then these things keep happening.
Yeah, so that is the thing. So, well, you and I are still here, although many have left, but the fact that we are here doesn't mean we accept it. We want the things to improve.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Under one country, two systems. It's not as if we're trying to wage a revolution and overthrow any government. No, but we want the promises in the Sino-British Joint Declaration and the Basic Law and all those things to be honored. And so that we can go back to the days when people are free, are safe, it's a vibrant city.
And if you didn't like something, you could go out and protest it or get your friends and organize a protest. But what people here want, in my humble view here, as an outsider here, is they want the high degree of...
You consider yourself outsider?
Oh, I'll always be an outsider here. I don't speak Cantonese, so...
That's your fault.
That's my fault.
How many years have you lived here?
Oh, 7 years this time.
And you've got your permanent residence?
Getting that down.
Maybe I hope you'll get it.
Yeah, but the high degree of autonomy is what people want. They want that high degree of autonomy that they were promised.
Now they talk about comprehensive jurisdiction.
Yeah. Comprehensive jurisdiction, but the high degree of autonomy, one country, two systems is a great formula.
Yeah, I know.
It's a fantastic formula.
Actually, it worked for quite a while.
It works. Hong Kong had a separate system. They were not forced to try to integrate their system into the mainland system, which was completely different.
Well, President Jiang Zemin talked about the well water and the river water. Don't mix.
Yeah.
But now it seems that people are so terrified.
Well, here they have the common law legal system. They had a free and independent press that held government to account. Accountable government. You know, it wasn't a democratic government under the British or under the first years of the first couple of decades of after the handover. But it was an accountable government.
Yeah.
Government officials resigned, when they got caught doing something they shouldn't have been done. They were held accountable. They were held accountable by the media. They were held accountable to the people by...
LegCo, too.
By LegCo. LegCo questioned. LegCo brought the government officials in and grilled them on things.
Well, I think the Chinese government in Beijing doesn't like that system. I think they have a lot of time for the Singaporean system.
Well, yeah.
They hope Hong Kong would be like Singapore. Now, actually, maybe we're worse than Singapore now.
On the Reporters Without Border Index, if you look at that, we're lower than Singapore. Singapore is like 138 or something. We're about 148 or so. We're lower than Singapore in that regard.
Yeah, so really, it's quite dreadful, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, really, just within a short time, just
that's
a few
what's shocking.
years.
Well, that's what's shocking to people. This all happened starting in 2020.
Yeah.
In 2020, this all came down with the imposition of the national security law, and it's an amazing, as I mentioned, just within that Reporters Without Border Index, nobody remembers a place that fell that quickly. But also just with here, the atmosphere, just think back to what this place was like in 2017, 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
And then see what's happening now. It will be very interesting to see if, now that the COVID restrictions are lifted, if, peaceful protests can come back. Because that was always such a feature of Hong Kong.
Now there are two individuals who put in application to march on May 1st, Labor Day.
Yeah, Labor Day.
Yeah.
And then the
let's see if they can get the permission.
And then the June
4th
march at the Victoria Park. We'll see if anything happens there. I'm sure people
I don't think they will allow people to go, but of
peacefully.
Yeah.
Nobody did anything at a June 4th march. It was very peaceful. People held candles.
Yeah, that is a candlelight vigil. The week before that, they have a march from Central to the liaison office. So there are two things. There's a march, and then on June 4th, they have the candlelight vigil in Victoria Park.
Right.
You think they will allow it?
I don't know. Well, it's going to be a very good test of whether this is one country, two systems or not. I fear not, because we saw the removal of Tiananmen statues and removal.
And the Hong Kong youth, the statue of shame.
Yeah, Pillar of Shame is gone.
Pillar of Shame.
Pillar of Shame is gone.
Disappeared.
Pillar of Shame has disappeared.
And then the Goddess of Democracy disappeared from the Chinese university.
So to me, none of this has anything to do with national security. This is just memory erasure. It's trying to erase memory of things that have happened.
And they did it at midnight. I don't know why.
Because nobody's around,
So they were quite ashamed of what they're doing.
Over Christmas break, exactly. I mean,
So really, Keith.
But again, I mean, it's an attempt to erase memory, and in schools, there's an attempt to kind of take this erasure and change how people think and view history. And again, one of the roles of journalism is to not let that happen. To keep reminding people of things that have happened,
Well, I hope your students will be able to play a good role in doing that.
Well, we hope so.
And not get arrested.
I always say your first job is to not get arrested, because you can't report if you're not free to report. So be safe, be accurate. Your best defense is facts. Your best defense is truth. And if you can wrap yourself in bulletproof facts, it's a lot harder to accuse you of anything. And also, students aren't out there trying to subvert state power. They're not out there involved in terrorism. They're not out there trying to promote anything like sedition and all that. They're just trying to tell stories. They're trying to tell truthful, accurate stories, give a voice to the voiceless, hold government to account. And that's what needs to be done.
Would the FCC invite some government official to come and talk?
We'd love it. We invite them all the time.
You do?
We invite them all the time.
And nobody has taken it up?
Well, they've been busy so far traveling around telling good Hong Kong stories and traveling the Middle East, but I have every faith that they will come. We're there now. We haven't done anything wrong. We're a legal entity. They gave us a 3-year lease on our premises, so they're more than welcome to come at any time. People from the Foreign Ministry and the Liaison Office are more than welcome to come and give a talk.
Yeah, you've invited. There's a standing invitation.
We invite everybody, but if they want to tell good Hong Kong stories, I think they should start at the FCC. Why not? You don't have to fly to the Middle East, or you don't have to fly to Thailand.
Maybe they'll start at TVB.
You can come straight to the FCC and use our luncheon platform, and you get the international media.
Exactly.
We'll be paying rapt attention to every word you say. So
get the Commissioner of Police.
I'd love the Commissioner for Police to come on. I'd love the Secretary for Security to come.
They've never
talk to us.
Never come.
Not yet. I think they'll come at some point.
Yeah, but
if
they want Hong Kong to be really back to normal, then they have to come. Sure, and explain their thing, and also allow people to speak more freely.
And the other thing is, with our format, you have to answer questions.
Yeah.
From the audience, and the questions will all be very polite. We treat our guests very politely. We'll serve you a good lunch. But you come up, you can give your statement, you can give a talk, you can do a presentation, but then just answer a few questions from our audience members, who are journalists, business people in the cultural field, etc.
And the foreign correspondents have no problem getting a visa to come and work here.
So far, I've not heard of any problems with foreign correspondents coming here lately. I'm trying to think if that's true now. I think some who were told they had to leave Beijing.
But then
in a tit-for-tat expulsion a couple of years ago, were told they couldn't relocate and work in Hong Kong. That was the U.S.-China tensions. One thing we have to do is get U.S.-China relations back on track.
How do you do it?
Well, it's insane.
How do you do it?
We can't have the situation where the world's two largest economies and these two large countries are not talking to each other.
Yeah.
They're not having any high-level exchanges. I mean, Blinken canceled the trip that he was supposed to make to lay the groundwork. Hopefully that'll
because of the balloon.
Because of the silly balloon gate. Again, I mean, because of domestic U.S. pressure, they couldn't have him coming and hobnobbing in Beijing while this was going on. But and then you had the whole issue of these meetings with the Taiwanese president in California. You're going to set things back, but we really do need to get the U.S.-China relationship back on track. Hong Kong can play a connector role.
Yeah.
With that. I mean, Hong Kong has a unique role to play there.
Maybe the FCC can play that.
Well, we don't get involved in politics, but anybody coming through Hong Kong is welcome to come and give an open talk at our forum.
Anyway, thank you very much, Keith. The fact that we can have a conversation here And I don't think you felt very frightened.
No, I'm not frightened. No, that's two systems. I mean, the fact that you can go on Facebook, we still have Facebook here, number one, which you probably can't access easily in the mainland without a VPN. We can have this chat. And,
so thank you very much, and maybe I'll invite you again when you have in your new incarnation.
I'll have an announcement to make after I leave the HKU job.
Okay, thank you, Keith. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.